I'm Liam, aka LC Paladin, and today we're going to be reacting to a new video by The Critical Drinker. There has been some very disturbing developments in Hollywood lately. Netflix has officially purchased Warner Brothers Studios, which means, well, nothing good, because if Netflix owns Warner Brothers, it's not only one of the deaths of one of the most, one of the biggest pillars in terms of, the founding companies of Hollywood. Because not only is it one of the founding companies of Hollywood, one of the original pillars, you might say, but in doing so, Netflix is going to probably eradicate so many movies that are coming to theaters, which is a huge issue for any kind of theaters to survive. So, if theaters want to survive, Netflix buying Warner Bros. Is a terrible idea. Absolutely terrible. And extremely worrisome for anyone out here that loves the movies as much as I do and values the cinematic experience. And so if there's any hope of survival, the politicians cannot let this go through. Huge potential monopoly, huge potential problem, literally upending Hollywood as we know it, even more than it already has been. Because let's be honest, Hollywood is not doing well. 2025 was probably one of the worst years for the movie theaters in recent memory. And not only just for theaters, but for Hollywood, the Hollywood industrial complex as a whole. And, well, let's see what the drinker has to say.
Declining theatre attendance, rising ticket prices, disappointing box office returns, shrinking theatrical windows, and now major studio buyouts by streaming giants. It's fair to say that 2025 has been a rough old year for Tinseltown, for movie theatres, for audiences, and the entire movie industry. But here's the thing, these aren't bugs anymore. They're features. Features of a changing entertainment landscape, a changing culture, and a changing perception of what films even mean to us now. The recent news that Netflix have officially won the bidding war to buy out Warner Brothers and their entire catalogue of IPs seems to have thrown the entire industry into a tailspin. Damn man, they've even petitioned the dreaded Orange Man to intervene and block the deal, as if the fucking White House has got any say over corporate mergers. The major fear in Hollywood is that Netflix will gradually move away from the theatrical model and transition movies almost entirely to streaming.
That's the big problem. If movies that were in theaters go right to streaming, it will completely eliminate the theatrical experience. And then all of us who love going to the movie theaters really won't have anywhere to experience these movies that we love and should be on the big screen. Movies that were meant and filmed specifically to be on the big screen, okay? There's nothing wrong with streaming movies. There's nothing wrong with streaming services. But if a streaming service has this much control over so much intellectual property, ones that are best suited for movie theaters, and it's not even just, it's Warner Brothers Studios. Warner Brothers, one of the big pillars of Hollywood that has been, actually, the company that's done the best this year in Hollywood is Warner Bros., ironically enough, even though they've been losing and hemorrhaging money for years with all their terrible product. But this year was pretty good for them. We had Sinners, we had the Minecraft movie, which I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was pretty bad, but it was at least it was so bad it was entertaining. It was so bad it was good. Superman, don't get me too started. Superman's so bad. I'm gonna be doing a video essay on how much Superman is a failure of monumental proportions on so many different levels. Biggest disappointment of the year for me. But they also, I think they also had F1, even though it was technically made by Apple, but they distributed it. They also had, what did they also have? Oh yeah, they had Weapons. Weapons was a surprise hit of the year. Even I didn't think I would like Weapons. Weapons was I don't know, this is for me. I went and saw it. Honestly, wow. Very good film.
And well, they probably should be afraid of that because I'm pretty sure that's the plan all along. But this isn't just the actions of a single streaming giant that wants to destroy movie theaters purely for shits and giggles. It's a simple reflection of the reality facing the movie industry now. A reality that's been knocking on the door of Hollywood with increasing volume and declining patience for years now and isn't going to be put off for much longer. It's time for some harsh truths, dear viewer, and the drinker is the one to administer them. The theatrical movie experience as we knew it is dying. It's not in a temporary slump, it's not just going through a bad spell right now, it doesn't need to hang in there until things pick up again, and you can't keep blaming it on fucking COVID.
No. It's all bullshit. All of it.
The fact is, it's not going to get better. What we're seeing now are the final stages of a process that started decades ago. To understand it, let us discuss the theatrical movie experience as we know it today, shall we? Now, imagine for a second that you're a typical American family man with a wife and 2 kids. You work a slightly unfulfilling corporate job that teenage you would probably be horrified by, but hey, it pays the bills, so whatever, I guess. And yeah, the sex is more of a predictable weekly ritual now than an exciting experience to look forward to, and you're harboring a growing suspicion that a divorce could be on the cards once the kids have flown the nest and there's nothing left to hold the 2 of you together, but let's not worry too much about that right now. For today at least, you want to take the family out to the movies. So you drive for 30 minutes in heavy traffic to get to your local theatre, you buy the tickets which cost like $20 each, because of course the kids just have to see the film in IMAX. Then you have to buy overpriced drinks and snacks because nobody can just sit through a 2-hour movie without shoveling a constant stream of food and drink down their throats. Then you take your seats, which smell a bit weird and have a suspiciously sticky patch around the crotch area that hasn't been cleaned, but let's not worry too much about that. And oh dear, it seems like there's a bunch of teenagers sat right behind you. What are the odds, eh? I hope you like eavesdropping because you're going to be hearing them talk about every single detail of their lives throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, those are some huge problems. Theaters really haven't kept up with the higher demands in terms of the customer service of movie theaters. Very few have. There are some that have. I think Epic Theaters has done a really good job. Regal's pretty good, but AMC, which has been one of the biggest chains, dude, the AMC in my area alone is so poor in terms of quality. I literally had to give up after like a year of going there. But it was ruining so much of my movie experience. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. The seats were breaking down. They didn't smell as good as I would have liked, if I'm being honest. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, half the projectors just were either the blues and the reds were off or they were broken. Just so disappointing. It was ruining the theatrical experience. And not only that, but yeah, one of the big things is that it costs too much money. And I understand they're trying to recoup some of their funds for how much money they're hemorrhaging from the theaters and from Hollywood just not putting out is quality content. But that's also part of the big problem. If Hollywood's not putting out quality content, movie theaters are not going to have good movies to show in theaters. If they don't have good movies to show in theaters, people aren't going to come, and it's not going to be worth the ticket price.
But hey, it's just part of the theatre experience, right? Oh yeah, and half the people around you already have their phones out, 1 or 2 are watching TikTok videos with the volume turned way up, and one guy's having a full-on argument with his girlfriend on speakerphone. But hey, it's just part of the experience, am I right? So you settle in as the lights go down, and you try to ignore the teenagers behind you, and the people who are still filtering in and tripping over people because the lights are off now, because it's time for trailers. Oh, come on! Well, actually, it's time for the commercials first, usually for luxury cars you're never going to be able to afford. Then after 15 minutes or so, you're deemed worthy to watch the trailers. Then another 20 minutes after that, it's finally movie time. But oh no, now your 5-year-old daughter decides that she really needs to go to the bathroom because all that soda has to go somewhere, right? So you stumble your way to the end of the row, tripping over feet and pissing off everyone else around you in the process, and you take her outside so she can go for a piss, and eventually you make it back to your seat, and yeah, you've missed the first 10 minutes of the movie now, but hey, it's all part of the experience, right? So you finally settle down to watch the film, and you try to ignore the gossiping teenagers and the people on their phones, and the stomach-churning sound of food getting shoveled into faces, and the smell of sweaty, unwashed bodies, and just concentrate on the pure cinema experience. Wait, isn't this just a remake of an animated movie you saw when you were a kid? Son of a bitch!
Extremely valid. There's way too many remakes, live action remakes. It's dumb. I understand the appeal of wanting to see something adapted into live action. Very few properties are meant to be adapted or even can be adapted well into live action, and then half the time they're either so far from the original that it's not even comparable. It shouldn't even be the title of the original. If you're going to see like a remake of Cinderella and it's called Cinderella, you expect a Cinderella story. So they're either so far removed from the original or they're so shot for shot the same that you might as well go watch the animated one, which had more heart, more soul, better acting, better writing. It was better, okay? And not only that, dude, the commercials, okay, I will say, commercials before a movie, they've gotten pretty bad. I personally don't have a problem with the trailers because I'm such a movie guy. I like to see movies that are coming up, even though they're probably already see the trailers on YouTube, if I'm being honest. But not everybody's on YouTube, especially like the really older crowd. You know what I mean? You never know. I can get to the theater sometimes 30 minutes late, and I know I won't have missed anything.
Anyway, about 3 hours and several bathroom breaks later, you finally make it home, tired, mildly pissed off, and about $100 out of pocket, and you find yourself asking the question, what the fuck was the point in any of that? So with all that in mind, is it any wonder that more and more people are just opting out of movie theaters altogether? Like, be honest with yourself for a second. Unless you're a genuine cinephile who needs to see everything on the biggest screen imaginable, is it really worth the time, the hassle, the expense, the irritation and the discomfort just to see something that'll probably be available on streaming in a few weeks anyway? Which brings me neatly along to my second point.
It would be worth it if the experience overall was better. How many movie theaters do you go to and they genuinely have a genuine IMAX screen? How many? Almost none. I don't even have a single. I would probably have to travel for an hour or 2 hours to go to an IMAX screen that's actually available for me to watch movies that are meant to be seen in IMAX. Like next year, The Odyssey, I will travel to see The Odyssey. That's worth it. Or for Avatar 3, when I'm traveling, I know there's going to be more IMAX theaters where I'm going. And so I will make the trip to go see like Avatar 3 in IMAX. But most movies, I don't need to see in IMAX. But even then, the quality of the projectors has decreased and the seats are not as good. It's a problem.
The alternative. The appeal of the movie experience was always in the scale and spectacle, because until pretty recently, nothing in your home could ever hope to compete with it.
Nope.
Not anymore, however.
Yep.
These days, like $1,000 or less will get you a pretty serious home cinema setup. A setup that's ready to go whenever you want it, where you don't have to drive for half an hour just to get there, or shell out for overpriced snacks, or sit through endless trailers and commercials for the privilege of watching something that you've already paid for, or be forced to share the experience with a bunch of strangers who can spoil your enjoyment at any time they want, where you can pause the movie whenever you want and never miss a second of it, and most importantly, where the whole thing doesn't set you back more than $100 a pop. It's a trade-off.
That's a huge problem. Anybody who wants to see a movie, especially if you have a family, it's gotten way too expensive. The only reason that I don't have to pay as much is because I pay for A-list, just because I see so many movies. Most people don't pay for A-list because most people don't think most movies are worth seeing anymore, which really sucks, or at least in theaters, because there are some things that come out, but a lot of things that come out that are only get the most attention are only the biggest releases, which makes sense because it's the only things that can unite people to bring people to theaters anymore, because overall people don't trust movie theaters anymore, because overall the quality of the movies has gone down.
For sure, a trade-off between spectacle on one side and comfort and convenience on the other, and the fact is, that trade-off's getting more and more appealing for the average person every single year. When you get right down to it, the harsh reality is that movie theaters are an outdated form of entertainment now, a holdover from the 20th century that's been propped up beyond its time by one simple philosophy: more. Gigantic budgets, more visual effects, bigger screens, louder sound systems. Studios and theaters have been locked into a cinematic arms race for decades now, pushing technology and spectacle as far as they could go until finally they hit an evolutionary dead end. It was always going to happen, it was just a question of when. And as it happens, the answer is now. So what does it all mean? Is this the end of Hollywood? The end of movies? The end of the world as we know it? No, of course not. There's always going to be a demand for entertainment. That'll never change. It's just the method of delivery that's evolving. People are going to watch more movies in the comfort of their own homes. It's inevitable. Theatrical windows are going to get shorter and probably vanish altogether eventually, so that movies will get released simultaneously onto streaming and theatrical.
That's one of my biggest fears, okay? There's certain movies that should always be seen in theaters. K-pop Demon Hunters, Frankenstein, those are two movies that Netflix helped to budget, and therefore the reason why they premiered on their platform. Those movies should have gone to theaters. Do you know how much money Netflix would be rolling in if they just allowed K-pop Demon Hunters to be released in theaters after it was as big as it was? Just for 1 month, or even 2. That's it. Same thing with Frankenstein, okay? You don't have to have like a 90, 120 day release, like back in the day. You can do like even a month or a month and a half for those releases, and then have it also available on streaming at the same time. Do you know how much I would have loved to see Frankenstein or K-pop Demon Hunters in theaters? K-pop Demon Hunters, a movie that I had literally no interest in. I gave it a chance and I was blown away. Not a movie made for me. 25-year-old dude. Like, K-pop Demon Hunters is obviously like more leaning towards a female audience, and guess what? It was a banger. A banger. My favorite movie of the year by far, literally no question. No question. There are other movies that are in the top for me for this year, but overall, the list of movies that I've loved this year, it's lower. It's lower. The past 5-6 years have been rough for overall for really good movies, like overall statistically. Movies have gone down.
Movie theatres will still exist to some extent, but just like the old musical theatres from the 19th century, they'll become a much more niche experience, reserved for film buffs and occasional big event movies that people can't afford to miss.
What I'm worried about.
Box office revenues are going to keep declining until eventually they become obsolete metrics, and a film's real success will be determined by the number of hours watched on streaming, none of which will be independently verifiable, allowing studios to hide massive and embarrassing flops behind subscription walls. And as for the studios themselves, I'd expect more and more of them to be bought over by streaming and tech giants like Netflix, Apple, and Amazon in the years ahead. Businesses that make their real money elsewhere and can easily afford to pump billions of dollars into film and TV production, even if a lot of it never actually turns a profit. Do I like where all this is going? Not really, because despite all their flaws, I think there is still something kind of special about going into a movie theatre and just losing yourself in a film for a couple of hours. But pretending this stuff isn't happening or that it can be magically reversed is like telling yourself that internet cafes or public payphones or video rental stores are going to make a comeback someday. They won't, because the moment technology made these things irrelevant, the culture quickly adapted to live without them. Movie theatres are dying out, and the Hollywood system that relied on them is dying along with them. Whether something better eventually comes to replace them is anyone's guess.
I will say they're dying out specifically though because of the lack of quality movies. Now movies overall, I think, unfortunately, less people are going to see them because they're becoming less culturally relevant. But I think one of the reasons they're becoming less culturally relevant is because the quality's gone down. In 2019, when Avengers Endgame came out, do you remember how massive that was? You, your mother, your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle, they were all going and watching Avengers Endgame. You want to know why? Because people cared about that movie and it was good. It was an experience. It was a culmination of like 10 years of quality storytelling, okay? 10 years with very few exceptions of quality. Captain Marvel wasn't good. No, it's... With the rise of COVID, people had an over-reliance on being at home and got used to at-home streaming, at-home movies, okay? That was a huge factor in people getting used to not going to the movies. The reason is because back in 2019, movies were better and you were going for a better experience, for better movies, for an event, right? For movies that you had to watch. There's not many of those. Even the tentpoles these days are bad. And here's the thing. Rising tides lift all ships. If more people are going to the movies to see those big releases that are guaranteed to be good in their eyes, most people are going to enjoy. That means they are more likely to spend more time and more money giving other movies a chance who maybe they weren't initially crazy about as much as that big tentpole release. Because now the audience has more trust in the Hollywood system because overall movies were better. If movies continue to get better in quality, and that's more perpetuated and more people being like, you have to see this, you have to see this, you have to see this. I think there's a chance of recovery, but we are on a downward spiral, and if things don't change very quickly, very soon, yeah.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Guys, movies need to survive. I hope the theaters survive. I care. I really do. Hollywood's got to change. They have to adapt. They have to increase the quality of their filmmaking, or else things will not be the same. That is their choice. If they choose to fail, that is completely within their ballpark to change. They have to make the conscious choice. They have to look at the customer and look at what they want, what they don't want in movies, and adjust accordingly, because the last 6 years have not been it. Well, that's my thoughts. Yeah, thanks for watching. God bless. Have a great day.